All right, this is a Ted Cruz event about to start in Guthrie Center, Iowa. A lot of GOP rivals are looking at Ted Cruz's prohibitive lead in that caucus state and trying to find any way to cut into it and him. They have a number of strategies for that, so some of those in a minute. First to Carl Cameron in Des Moines, Iowa, with, I guess, the Stop Ted campaign, huh?
Well, there's always something to be said for being at the head of the pack, unless you're a month away from the Iowa caucuses and running for president. George W. Bush is pretty much the only Republican who went into the new year, the election year itself, with a lead and was able to sustain it in Iowa. Other than that, just about everybody else got toppled in the last few weeks. Rick Santorum's the best example of that. The 2012 president of the Iowa caucuses has been saying for 3 years and 11 months that he got 50% of his vote in the last 3 days of the caucus calendar, and we're still 4 weeks left. So for Ted Cruz, it's a time of celebration and a big-time caution. He knows that if it looks like he's taking it for granted, he'll be punished by Iowa caucus goers. A very fickle bunch. There's only about 120,000 who show up. That'll be a record, in fact, for Republicans if it happens this year. And then there's also the idea that there's a target on his back, and all of his rivals are going to be coming after him, and he's fully prepared for that, too.
And I heard one Trump supporter say, well, he's up by 9 points in one poll. If he wins by any less than that, it's a failure. So they already played the reverse expectations game, right?
Well, and the thing is, Cruz has been very, very effective for about a year describing what he perceived as his role, or in his words, his lane in the race, and has said over and over again he'd end up winning Iowa because of his ability to court evangelicals and Tea Partiers. 65% of the Republican caucus in Iowa are self-described born-again Christians, and Tea Partiers are very, very strong in Iowa. It's the first caucus state, and they've been here since the very beginning of the Tea Party revolution in '09. So it's a coalition that could help Cruz. Having said that, it's still 4 weeks away, and Rick Santorum's an object lesson for everybody.
Yeah, we forget that. Thank you very much, Carl. Carl Cameron in Iowa. Now we're looking at how they play Iowa. If you think about it, the last big time it was a big game changer was way back in 1976, right? That's when a fellow named Jimmy Carter, who was on no one's list among the 35 prospective presidential candidates that year, finished second behind, undecided. But it was enough to propel him later on to the Democratic nomination and give this guy who was known as Jimmy Who the Democratic nomination that year, and when all was said and done, the presidency that year when he beat Gerald Ford. Iowa State University political science professor Stephen Schmidt with us right now. Professor, good to have you. There's this effort now afoot to try to derail Ted Cruz. It doesn't take much, I guess, to do that in the way the caucus vote is handled. But I guess they're trying to reach out to non-caucus participants. What does that mean? What are they doing?
Well, that's right, Neil. I mean, the Iowa caucuses are all about making personal contact with people, convincing them that you're their guy, and having them actually show up on caucus night. And I think that's what Rick Santorum did. We didn't realize it until caucus night. He really, really nailed it by going to 99 counties and getting a lot of people to show up at those 1,700 precinct caucuses and saying he's the guy.
What happens, Professor, where some of the experts get it so wrong? I mean, I remember, years ago, it looked like it was Mitt Romney's state to lose. Rick Santorum, we find out confirmed days later, was the actual winner. That cost him valuable, needed publicity, and wind at his back. But more often than not, I don't believe Barack Obama 8 years ago was expected to win Iowa, let alone Hillary Clinton finished third behind both Senator Obama at the time and Senator Edwards at the time. So what is it that changes so quickly at the last second?
I'll tell you what it is. It is the fact that voters go to their precinct, they talk for a little bit with their neighbors who are at that precinct, and some of them actually get talked out of the guy that they told the last pollster they were going to vote for, and they vote for the most convincing argument that's made in each one of those precincts. And that is very different from a primary. In a primary, you know who you want to vote for. Right. You stop and vote on your way to work or back home, and your numbers are probably close to what the polls said. In the caucuses on that night, a lot of minds can be changed.
Now, by going after those who normally don't participate in these caucuses, Professor, what are they hoping to do? If someone is not of a mindset to spend hours doing whatever they have to do to be part of this process. How do you woo them? I imagine if the numbers are small to begin with, it wouldn't take that many to sway them, right?
Well, that's right, Neil. And the thing that you do is you sell the fact that it is really important that this is the year that is going to make a huge difference, that America is in crisis, and that your guy is the one who can save it, and you should go. And Donald Trump, I think, to some extent at least, as an unknown, we don't know who his supporters are, but he certainly has gone after a lot of people who have not participated in caucuses before. And the big question is, are they going to show up? And if they do, he could do very well.
You know, dumb question on my part, Professor, but you've been enduring all of them, so I appreciate it. One is that Iowa seems to be much more of a potential trendsetter for Democrats than it does Republicans. The last two Republican Iowa winners didn't get very far, whereas Democrats a lot of times tend to capitalize off of success in this state. Is that a rule of thumb or just a fluke or what?
I think the Democratic Party is not as divided as the Republicans. It's not as interesting. There are fewer factions, and so you get front runners, and the end results are between that small number, as you said the last time around, or with Hillary Clinton and Obama, at least it was, 3 people, and not 15 people. And it's a lot easier to essentially get it right when you've got a smaller number. I mean, the Republican Party is so blessed by the fact that they have such a rich field of candidates, and they've had that before, but it makes it a lot harder to consolidate and predict before because, you got so many.
Yeah, you're right. Professor, a real honor having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
All right.